Happy Halloween, everybody. It's one of my favorite holidays of the year. And in honor of my favorite holiday, today we're going to paint up some pumpkin golems. Just remember, safety first when dealing with resins. So I got these free STLs from Custom Miniature Maker. And with their pre-supported files, everything printed fine the very first time. As per my usual, I started these two pumpkin golems off with some black primer. Since I wanted the pumpkin heads to be the standout feature, I started with an undercoat of ochre brown thinned down to run through the airbrush. After I gave that some time to dry and it cured, it was time for some oil pin washing. Since we're doing pumpkins, the obvious choice of color is orange. Now, I only have a really basic oil paint set that I bought at Michael's many moons ago, so I only have one orange color, and it's a bit bright. And in order to bring down that brightness, I added some dots of lemon yellow in with the orange. Once you hit the oil dots of oil paint with a slightly dampened brush that has some spirit thinner on it, this is where the magic happens. And while the thinner was still doing its thing and keeping the paint moving and flowing, I brought in some burnt umber to darken the lower parts of the pumpkin skin, specifically the vertical ribs that run up and down the pumpkin. I wanted to make them a little more shadowy. And you can see here at first, it looks very dark, but if you keep blending and moving the paint around, it'll start mixing with the yellows and the oranges, and it'll give you a really nice transition from the bottom of the rib where it's brown and dark up to the top surfaces where it becomes that more orange and yellowy color. Now, this comparison is still wet from the thinner, so it's kind of glossy looking, but I think you get a really good idea of the transition from the ochre brown color, which sets a nice solid base tone, up into the pumpkin orange color. For the rest of the skin, I just went with a medium skin tone as a base and hit the highlights with a basic skin tone from Vallejo, and then washed everything with a layer of necrotic flesh from the Army Painter Speed Paint range. Now, I should tell you that this set comes as a husband and wife team for a one-shot D&D adventure. So the husband golem, I forget his name, I'll have to look it up. His shirt, I started with a base of Prussian blue. And for the wife, I started with pure red. The leaves got hit with a full blast of the Spirit Bright, which is a nice green color. For the cleaver and pitchfork, both were base coated with an armor brown, which is a reddy brown color. And then I just did a light dry brush of Army Painter's gunmetal metal color over all the metal bits to kind of show that it was once metal. And all that was left was for the yellow for the glowing eyes and the mouth. Then it was time for the bases. Again, they were primed black when everything else was primed. The pumpkins on the bases were painted at the same time with the same method as the golems' heads. The fields were first sprayed with U.S. field drab. Once all that was dry, I dabbed on some white glue and sprinkled on a light green 2mm static grass. And by turning the base over and tapping the back side, I was able to knock off the excess grass and get the short static grass to stand up where it was in the glue section before the glue dried. After a little touch-up work, here we have Elias and Mira Grange, who have now become pumpkin golems. I told you I'd go find the names at some point. And these guys are ready for your one-shot D&D games or just stand-in monsters for any other tabletop games. Heck, you could even just put them on display for Halloween. Until next time, happy Halloween!